Hey guys, welcome back to Tough Love with Dr. John O'Connor. Today's podcast has been sponsored by MedRay Laser and Technology, the #1 Class 4 laser on the market. Today's guest, Ang Teeple, teacher, coach, business consultant. Welcome to the show.
I'm so happy to be here.
Coach, I have to tell you, when I was looking through your podcast, I was absolutely taken back by bringing me back through my years of being a player, a coach, a trainer. And I'm like, who's Ange? Like, who's this person, right? And I was saying, people were telling me to connect with the people being interviewed. But of course, to me, I'm always like a go to the source guy. I'm like, no, I want her, So, and, I know we're supposed to be together because when I saw All In on your hat, I'm like, this is my kind of human.
Yes.
So, anyway, tell my audience a little bit about yourself.
Yeah. So I was teacher coach for 23 years, left teaching 2 years ago and followed a dream about wanting to spread awareness in mental health in athletics, just through my own experiences, through growing up, through what it was like for me as an athlete. And I've been on that journey for 2 years on what works and what doesn't work, trying to tap into what the business world looks like. I fell in love with keynote speaking, doing workshops, PD presentations for teachers, and I turned my initial all-in apparel brand into a nonprofit because I saw such a need in athletics to help the coaches, to help the athletes, and to help the parents in this whole triangle of mental health in athletics and how to improve it.
I love that. And then, you know what? I always share with people, it's been one of my common bonds to share with my kids that are injured in the practice when I go into Dr. O'Connor mode. But reading your bio was something that hit my heart, right? That I've been through it with some genetic autoimmune things and whatnot. And we touched some stuff before that. But the reality is that I feel like the best athletes and the best coaches are the ones that have experienced hardship and say, hey, you know what? My job is to be the light when there's darkness. So share my audience like some of the stuff that you've been through, that you shared with me. And I think that that's something that's going to really open up the world to what you are.
Yeah, sure. I mean, ever since I was a kid, I had a messy childhood. Just grew up with some dysfunction, some drug and alcohol addiction surrounded me. So right away, I was threw into the role of just taking care of my younger sister, which I valued, and also valued the ups and downs of growing up like that. I like to say dysfunction is my superpower. I learned empathy. I learned how to roll with punches. So from there, I found athletics, and athletics was this space of like, holy smokes, like I can achieve, and I'm going to be addicted to achievement. So I don't think I actually missed the addiction gene. I think I just put it in a different way.
You rerouted.
Yes, exactly. So I was a successful athlete at Shore Regional, went on to play at Ball State and got out. And through the mentors and the coaches that I had and how I saw the way I made a difference amongst even my teammates, I was like, you know what, I got to go into teaching. And so I went right into teaching. And then one of the big things that happened to me that also gave me this like grit, I like to call it, was I was 15 years old. I was on the field hockey field. I was a goalkeeper. I went to drop step, and what someone would be called as blowing their knee out. I subluxed my knee. I went to the doctor, Dr. Donald, still remember him. And he was like, whoa, you don't really have ACLs. You didn't blow anything out and you're fine. And they fitted me for 2 of the Don Joy braces. I like to call them my Forrest Gump braces. Yeah. I had one orange, one blue, because I was a Miami Dolphin fan. Mm-hmm. And from there, it was time to go to college, though, and I wasn't recruited because I was a medical risk. Mm-hmm. Because then everything kind of started subluxing as I started to mature. And the coaches out at Ball State said, we're going to give you a shot. And I walked on. And then within about a month, I started over the 2 scholarship players, became the #3 goalkeeper in the country, and got my scholarship and wrote out about 6 surgeries in college, but recovered and really never missed any time playing. So I learned through those trials, like you really can do anything with your mindset. And so despite everything else I would go through in my life, and then finally figuring out I have Ehlers-Danlos, it was like, all right, well, that's not going to stop me either. Let's move on to what I can do. So
I love that. It's one of those things I always say to my kids is you can't lose if you don't quit.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Excellent.
And I think one of the things that I'm hearing your message is that, and I was sharing with you that I had a really special patient in my clinic that was a similar thing. And actually one of my two, and the reality three actually, and all very special.
Yeah.
And the recurrent injuries that were random, and a call from a Caribbean island, or just walking on cobblestone and having like this extraordinary ankle sprain where they like jumped out, and all of the orthopedics, like Dr. Donald's, you know, and again, Gordy's a good friend of mine, and, you know, and he's sharp, you know, and if he missed it, you know, it's amazing because they're looking at acute trauma and triage, right?
Yes.
But all of a sudden it becomes a complex when it's like an ankle, a knee, a shoulder, an elbow. Wait a minute. There's laxity everywhere. Look deeper. And that was my kids. And that was one of my things that I said was my superpower in the clinical setting, that I didn't want my degree to be a limitation. I wanted it to be the door. And that if I wanted to walk through the door, I could either stay outside and say, hey, I'm an outsider, or I could walk into it and say, I'm going to be great. Yeah. And even though I may not be able to fix this person, I'm going to say, hey, there's something not right here.
Yeah.
I'm going to send you out to figure that out. Because if I know I helped you, then I did my job.
I love that.
You know? And, you know, and I get choked up thinking about it. You know, it's, I will look back when it's all said and done and toast the trust that those kids had in me. And, you know, and I always chuckle because I'll show my boys, I'm like, you know, like my friends, I'll be like, these kids now, they're amazing. They're in 20, some in their 30s. And I'll message them and I'll say, how you doing? And, you know, it's like 2 seconds later, Doc, you know?
Yeah.
And because it was always a genuine, like a belly laugh, like I was a little kid, because I'd share with them. They're like, you know, Doc, you know, you have been through, like, keep yourself in great shape. I'm like, woke up one day paralyzed. You know, that Coach K poster that's assigned in my office says, we're pulling for you. Yeah, it was because I was paralyzed and I couldn't see out of my left eye. And I was at his camp. And all of a sudden the world stopped. So I get it. I was there. I remember writing the essays to myself saying, I'll be better tomorrow. And just always don't quit. All in mentality. Yep. You know? So I knew I would love this podcast today because I was like, come on, girl. I know there's something in you that I'm going to pull out.
Yeah.
You know? I love keynote speaker and this TEDx stage opportunity and what you're learning there. So share me what you got going on there.
Yeah. So when I first started the All In apparel brand, people were like, hey, why don't you come speak to my team? Why don't you come speak to our athletic organization, some athletic directors I knew? And I was like, okay, great. I had no experience. I didn't know what I was doing. I mean, for 23 years as a coach, just like, I loved hearing myself talk. So I was like, let's do it. And I remember my first speech, and it was like I was actually at CBA, and I was working alongside of like suicide training. And I was in front of all of these male coaches, and they were like, and the woman said, I want you to share your story about how important a trusted adult is. So here I was talking about how my coaches saved me from so much in my life. And these men were also hearing about suicide training. So it was a little of a push and a pull, but then it was cool when I saw that I could get in their hearts a little, and that I did with no training, nothing, and I was hooked.
You're
and then
hooked,
it was
right?
like, how am I going to do this? And that's a big reason why we changed the apparel brand for All In into a nonprofit, because I want the opportunity to go and do more keynote speaking and be able to find the funding to do that, and for people that can't necessarily pay for that speaking. And so, then I fell in love with it all around, and I was like, hey, what are my 3 dreams? It's to write a book, be on the TEDx stage, and to have, my own consulting business. And
you checked all the boxes.
I checked all the boxes. My book's coming out in May, and the TEDx stage was a grueling process to apply everywhere. And then finally, when I got vulnerable and deep about, hey, you know what? Like, what represents Ange? It's being all in, it's rising up. And soar above life's storms was a very big metaphor for my grandfather who passed. And went with it, and they accepted me. So
I love that.
It's exciting.
I love that.
June 1st.
Tell me about the book.
So the book is a metaphor for storms.
Okay.
And it's a memoir of everything I've been through and some pretty awesome stories that I apply to parts of a storm, like whether it's the gathering clouds, find your lighthouse, your inner compass, all those kind of things. I bring in stories from my past that taught me stuff, but then I also teach the lesson of perspective, of grit, of resilience, of determination, of self-talk, self-worth. And I've tied it kind of all together. So it's like, I say, a memoir / self-help book kind of thing, you know? And it's really, a lot of people say, what do you think you're going to do? Get rich writing a book? No one knows who you are. And what I say to them is, no, if one person reads this book and they're inspired by it, it's more of, hey, I did this because I want to have a tribute to my grandparents and because this is something I said I was going to do for somebody who said they were going to do something and believe they can now. So
that's it. You finished what you
that's what it's all
right?
about.
You know, love it. You know, I think that's the biggest message we could give to our audience, you know, and, you know, I'm blessed in coaching for a quarter century, you know, almost as long as you, and it's just as long as you, I'm a little bit older. And when my younger population's reaching out, I'm like, hey, would I let you off the hook back in the day? I'm not going to start now. Finish what you started, you know, but I do think the biggest task that I see with people, and I think I love where you're going with it, is that people need coaches, adults, everybody. I mean, I started my business coaching because, you know, you got the degree, you have all the tools, you have the beautiful space. No one's coming through the door, right? And I've always been that kid. Hey, no one's coming. You want this? Dig in. All in on yourself, you know, and it started when I was paralyzed and then coming back from that. And, you know, what you realize is people don't care anymore, whether it's ED or you had GBS or this or that, you know, your family cares, mom cares, right? But to get out to the world, you know, it's putting your story out there to where you can turn around and make somebody else feel special. And they're like, you know what? They didn't talk about themselves all the time. They said, no, I was there. I could have been the victim or I could be the victor. And I chose to win. You pick. 2 choices, right? And, you know, we're talking about Ed Milet earlier, and he was talking about the Matrix, you know, the blue pill, the red pill. And it's so true. It's life, right? You could choose to stay in and fight, or you could ring the bell, right? And I think that, you know, that was one of the things we were talking on previous podcasts is 2023 for us was a crazy year. I'm not big on politics on this podcast, but, you know, we made some decisions that with the banking industry and loan rates and this and that are crushing us. So we have to move away from something that was my dream facility. You could appreciate this being a coach and an athlete and and that inner, you know, beast, right? And I built out a $2.5 million facility, at least, right? But to reproduce it, 3 million. Actually, they want to sell it now for 3.5, right? And it is stellar. Can't afford it, right? It's just not in the cards. And, you know, to take that deep breath and let it go, you know, it's like taking your shoes, it's like taking your cleats off for the last time. But I know it's for the greater good. I know it's for what we need to do to grow and scale, to launch the coaching business, to do the things that I'm doing now, even the podcast. Like we were, you know, this team is with us and we had an awesome experience. We're going back to a mall. We do a lot of on-sites and we're filming and people were going by and it was so special to watch them like filming us filming.
That's cool.
And like posting it out on their stuff. And I'm like, you know what? They don't even know what we're talking about. I want the message to be so powerful that they're like, oh, that's John O'Connor. That's, you know, that's good. You know, that's, you know what I mean? You ever hear them speak? So powerful, so kind, so this and that. They say a message that changes the way you start or finish a day, you know? And, you know, and that would be my mission. That would be my goal that I would say, you know what? I wanted to play pro basketball. I wanted to be an elite college basketball player. Now I want to be somebody, you know, and I'm no angel. Right. I've made my mistakes. I'm going through them right now as we speak, you know, and the reality is that again, red or blue pill, you know what I mean? Yeah. I can lay down and quit, you know, go to the bottle, go to this, go to that, or I can say, hey, listen, somebody's going to get hurt. You know, this is going to happen, but I have to make a decision, stick with it, and then be the best person you can in that situation. Right? Like walking away, like I see, you know, like when you said, hey, you know, you realized when you were coaching that last job, you were more of a mental health coach you know, a human performance coach than you were an actual sports coach. And you realize, hey, you know what? This is my superpower. I don't mind going out there coaching these kids, but quite frankly, I'd rather build them up to make them be emotionally bulletproof than be mediocre field hockey players, right?
Exactly.
And I think that's very insightful for you to know what you want and to walk away. Especially like you said, I believe your husband is in the similar industry, so you're not with him,
yes.
Anymore.
It was hard just because you take this jump and there's no guarantee. Like I told you, it was this big mentality. I mean, of course, everybody, they do call me all in Ange for a reason. And I went all in and I didn't know what that looked like. But like you just said, at every step I have taken, I have figured out what I actually love doing. So I love podcasting. I love giving the people in the community a voice. I love inspiring. Like, I don't like to call myself a motivational coach, speaker or a motivational coach. I like to say I'm a transformational speaker. Like, I want you to listen to my story so you're ready to write yours and keep going. And it's just been cool to see where it all landed from where I started. And there are some hard days building a business. I mean, like you said to me, you were like, well, what do you do? Or who are you? When I get asked those questions, I'm still like, I go back to, you know what? At the end of the day, I'm still an educator. I'm an inspiration, and I'm a light. That's what I got for you, and what else comes after that? I'm still figuring it out,
It's awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome. Love it. It's powerful. One of the things that I think in the time we get to be on this planet is knowing what you want with every decade. Now there's no excuse. We're in our fourth decades. I'm about almost done with it. And I chuckled because one of the things that I've been noticing as I'm paying attention, like you said, what am I? What's my total? What's my title rather? And going into these huge corporations that have venture capitalists or private equity groups or whatever, they put such thought in chief CFO, chief flow officer, or CIO, chief inspirational officer, or CGO, chief growth officer. And I'm like, you know what? I like that. Mm-hmm. I think it's great. I think it's such an awesome way to think, to give somebody or self, to designate yourself to be like, you know what? I want to be the chief inspirational officer. I used to tell people all the time when I was, this basketball trainer, I was Doc, and I would show up and I would study, hence, Kobe and Jordan and Steph. I loved his work ethic for being a smaller player that, got so much early criticism. And I was like, this kid's going to be great. And I was blessed because his co-captain at Davidson, this kid, Steven Rossiter, who was a tremendous player, I worked with him in his AAU career when he was in Staten Island. So he would say these amazing stories of how hard he worked. So I loved knowing he was a grinder. I embodied that, I really embraced that, where there were guys that went to a higher level and played, but I got better and better as a trainer. And, the kids would say, Doc never misses and that. I said, you know what? If I'm going to demonstrate it, I'm going to be the best at it. Because I was always intrigued being in healthcare, getting out, and then going to mingling things. And I'd see an overweight cardiologist or, a crippled orthopedic or, or whatever it was. And I'm like, if you're going to wear the tag, look like the tag. Right. And one of the neat things that I get to do with the podcast, we're getting a ton of brand ambassador relationships, and, some are community relationships, some are paid. And, I'm in the gym at about to be 50 years old in 2 months, and I'm in the best shape of my life. And if I have a hat on, I'm underneath, and all of a sudden they have no idea. They're coming up, they're like, they're chuckling, thinking they're like, I'm some 30-something-year-old. And I'm like, looking at them, I go, how old are you? Oh, you're younger than my son.
Yeah, exactly.
And, like, wow, I hope to be one day. I said, what's funny? I've always thought of myself as like a Peter Pan. And up until COVID, I literally thought, I was dunking, I was running, I was doing everything I wanted to do. And my son was like, you think you'll ever not dunk? And I was like, I don't know. I hope so. I kind of love seeing Vince Carter come out there 40-some years old and cranking a windmill. I said, and COVID happened and the courts closed and this and that. And it was a part of my childhood, or that door closed, if you will, on I couldn't get on the courts and I had to let it go. Because I always said, if I can't be Doc all in on the court. I never wanted to be one of those coaches that runs and gets the ball, rolls to. I want to be that granddad.
Yeah.
I wanted to be that. I was that dad, but I never wanted to be that trainer. I didn't want to be that coach. I wanted to inspire them, that I would say to them as a person that had my knee rebuilt to get back on the court at 39, that it was paralyzed and had a flare up with GBS at 38, that came back, that fractured my skull, that fractured my back, that had my knee surgery, that I was immobilized on a CPM for 3 months. The machine was just continuously moving to let the bone regrow, that you could do it. Like I went through all that, came back on the court to get that compliment, just to turn that around and say, you can do it too. I'm here to inspire you, because I went through all that and I would have went through hell to get to the other side. You just got to get through this workout.
Yeah, it's powerful. How long ago was that?
The knee or the para? I mean,
The para.
So I was paralyzed when I was a teenager, 15,
Okay.
say 15, 16. It was about a year.
Okay.
Unfortunately, with that autoimmune disease, I had demyelination of my peripheral nerves. So it left me with, much like you have, your cartilaginous, issues, ligament issues. I have like holes in the nerves. So I could get tingling, paresthesia, numbness. Now I joke around with it. I'm like, it's usually going to be a good day, only tingling a little bit. Or I'll joke around with somebody, I must like you. How come I'm tingling? But I don't let it bother me.
Right.
I ran into a guy at the Ford Athletic Club where we met when we first met, and he had a brain tumor and no pain, but he has tingling down both arms, both legs. Absolutely works so hard in his body, 60s, 70s, and a major cranial, like major surgery, brain surgery, right? Neurosurgery. And he was talking about all the symptoms, and it doesn't slow him down from doing anything. He's like, I will run till my last day. I will do this, I'll do that. The thing is not going to kill me. No fear. And I know that was one big thing you said, like overcoming fear. And when I heard that, I was like, wow. Because one of the things I didn't share with you is why this podcast started, and you wouldn't think this, so I'm going to blow your mind right here, is going into COVID, you could hide, right? I was never more scared in my life. I had to walk away from basketball. I was doing Training Without Borders with a bunch of like Andrea Carter, who's starring there. She was going to help out, my girl Becca Greenwell. These are all Tennessee Vol, Duke stars, right? Haley Pete, and we're on these videos working out kids for no money, just getting workouts in, being together. And I took an injury and I fractured my back. And literally I was like, oh man. And I'm pretty tough. Like I fractured my skull and saw 120 kids, 120 patients the next day and worked that night and trained. I don't really complain about stuff, right? Mm-hmm. I said, am I going to pop out? Nope. Put on glasses, went to work, And when I got hurt, there was such an emotional vortex that I got sucked into, because it was all gyms are closed. I'm never going to do what I love again, meaning my hobby, what makes me me. I knew I wasn't going to lose family and this and that. Of course they were there, but you always like to walk out and do what you love and then come home with that love and share with them. And I thought, as I said earlier, with the Peter Pan phenomenon, that I thought I'd have forever, and it was gone. Yeah. And getting sucked in, depression, and I tried everything. When I first got hurt, I left before I really got into the technology of how I treat and what's put me on the national scale of the healing things, the PEMF, the Class 4 laser with MedRay, the different shockwaves. I'm a co-sponsor in an international society of shockwave practitioners, and cryotherapy. We'll be traveling all over the world with them with cryoscience, like different things you see with the cold plunges, but we use actually machines to generate, Arctic temperatures. And it's got what got me back. But no matter what, I had to overcome that fear. I wouldn't touch my knees. I wouldn't bend. I wouldn't move. I was petrified that I was going to break. Like literally I got dipped in nitrogen and I was going to shatter. And I have never been afraid. God knows half the stuff I did as a teenager, I'm amazed that I didn't break everything, like jumping off bridges and falling out of trees and being a nut, getting ran over by a car. Like I did everything, you know what I mean? And by the way, I kept going, didn't even stop my day. Just like, I'm good, and to be there, an adult a father, a husband, it changed me forever. And, it imprinted on me that I said, you know what? I need to help others. This podcast is Tough Love. It's about, you got to love yourself more. You're going to get to a point that, much like your grandfather said, with storms, that was for what I thought the darkest storm. And then, simultaneously, my rock in my dad was starting to really fail in his health with emphysema. That's really why I gravitated, and I got to see Ed Milet live, hearing him talk about, and he's doing he's reenacting his dad, and my dad does that, where he's got to take a breath to take a word, that a word is a workout, saying, I'm going to miss you, or this and that. I'm like, no, don't do it.
Yeah.
Don't do it,
Yeah.
And, it changed so much, but it all layered. And I was like, you know what? I have inspired so many kids. I've helped so many in my clinical practice. I got to give some of that medicine back into me. And if I don't do the healing, the self-healing, and really change who I am, I'm going to be worthless to everybody. And that was tough love. That was his journey, and so much like All In, when I speak to people, they're like, we thought your physical mentalist was there, but we didn't realize you had that too. I'm like, when you go to work, you're on stage, like you need to be on. It's, if I'm treating, my guys in the background here or you, like it's my job to give you everything I have to be amazing. If I'm distracted, if I'm hurt. So I would always fake it, whether I had an ice pack wedged under or I have lasers on me right now. Like my guys laugh because they know I always have stuff on me because if I'm in front of you, I want to be present and I want to be amazing. That's my job. And I take it serious. And it was funny. I thought maybe I'm nuts. And I just got to see David Goggins. I was presenting in Las Vegas for MedRay Laser, the sponsor of today's show. What's up, guys? And David Goggins said something that was amazing about himself, that he came off the keynote speaker, the TED, all that kind of stuff, because he realized that he didn't love it. Because he said, I love doing the books, I'm extreme, I am the hardest, this and that. He goes, but for you people out there, all these doctors talking to these chiropractors, physical therapists, whatever was there, healthcare providers, if I walk in as David Goggins and I'm injured, I expect your best. Matter of fact, I'm going to demand it. And I was like, you know what? I'm not crazy. He might be a little extreme. This is my kind of guy. And like of all this stuff they were talking about, I mean, I sent my son like 2 videos of stuff that was amazing that I happened to catch live, that the mom behind me was like, I had to send it to my son. I had just sent it to him. He's playing baseball down at IMG. And I said, it's so important to let him know, because they see it and they think these guys are superhuman. I'll go, you hear the story? You hear the failure? You hear the injuries? We didn't quit. Kept going. The racial, the this and that. He was in Indiana where you went to school, Ball State, and there was a Klan convention going on or wherever you went, you know what I mean? And you're like, we're the same age, so they're here, and obviously, different parts of the country, I have, people do what they're going to do. I'm blessed to have some very spiritual people around me that are older coaches. And I've always loved the saying from one of my coaches. It's a former military that always, I say life coach, that always says, we are all the same color. We all bleed red. And I'm like, you know what?
I like that.
I love that. And I'm like, regardless of where we come from, this and that, we are all connected. We are all flesh and bones. We all bleed red. So again, I think today's podcast is about inspiration.
Yes.
It's about pivoting. I think your story and message is super powerful. I definitely love, and we're going to have a whole nother thing I want to know about the All In, and like, if that's tied into the ED or you have any kind of foundation, I want to support it. I want to get behind it. Because I know my girls are going to be listening to this. I'm going to be sharing like, I met a human. It's just going to be one of my humans, It's
great.
But they know how excited I get when I find somebody that when you go through stuff, a lot of people don't like to share it. And like you said, you got to get raw. And that's what draws people in. I'm like, oh, I remember writing every day. I remember watching my mom cry as a teenager and I had double vision. I had to wear an eye patch because that table would be out here in my mind because I'd see 2 of them and drop it. and she'd start crying, and I'd freak out, and I'd get on my hands and knees, and I'd start cleaning. We didn't, we were in a small house growing up, but she kept it immaculate. She wasn't upset I hit the floor. She knew I was upset that I spilled milk or this or that. I was like, Mom, I'm okay. Tomorrow will be a better day. I gotta land it.
Yeah.
Make sure it's there, then it shoots out, but I never had that failing attitude. She's like, and she would be like a cheese doodle about it, crying. I'm like, come on, Mom, good. And I think that's what it's all about. I think that nowadays it's so important that whatever journey you're going to go on, you're going to have rainy days. Mm-hmm. You're going to have a blizzard. You're going to have, the roads are going to slow down. You're not going to be 70 flying down in a convertible with the top down and warm breeze in your hair. You're going to get rained on. And I think that the all-in mentality of saying, hey, I expect it. It's not going to stop me. It may slow me down, but I'm going to keep going. And when I get there, when I reach that destination, I'm going to take somebody and bring them with me. And I think that's a very similar message that we're both trying to do. And so love having you on the podcast today. Yeah. Thank you so much.
Absolutely.
So when the book comes out, we're definitely going to bring you back on. We're going to do,
awesome.
I'm going to make you sign it on the podcast. I'm be super excited. So thank you so much for joining us today.
Absolutely.
Hey guys, today's podcast was brought to you again by MedRay Laser and Technology. Absolute great company. Coach Ange, absolutely amazing. You can check out on her platform. It'll be shared on the bottom of our episode today. You'll be able to find all her information. Absolutely inspirational. She is up and coming. She's going to be a superstar, and I'm so thankful to have you on the set today.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you.